presidents of the United States that Banjul is a capital, is battles, those not fit for human beings to live in. And as such, they are not advising the presidents of America to come to Banjul and visit. And when they arrive, the president himself, what he saw was an eyesore. He said it was indeed unacceptable for the British Empire to the way they manage and rule their colonies, and particularly Banjul at the time. And he said, how can the British government allow themselves to be the colonial powers and to be the masters of a colony, of a capital of a country that is not even fit for people to live, and by extension that is not even fit for animals, for pigs to live in. At the time, in 1943 January, that's all is contained in this book. And also, in addition to that, the infrastructure, when one talks about development, if one says development is poor, meaning there is development. But at the time, President Roosevelt and the American people described Banjul as completely, there is not a single development that is visible in the island at the time. And he said, it will be his responsibility to ensure that the League of Nations, that the United Nations, it's formed, and he will advocate for the British government to abandon what he called barbaric policies of colonizing Banjul and other colonies. That heralded the formations and the founding of the United Nations. And that heralded the American presidents and renowned world leaders who were against colonies at the time, including the greatest sons and daughters of the African continent, to advocate for the British government to abandon its colonies, for the continent of Africa to be liberated, and for African to be independent. As indicated, we will read the books. As I said, I will read the entire contents of the book. But we have to look at it with trickling down into the perspective of modern-day Banjul. 1943, most of us were born. Most of us were going to. At that time, the British were in Banjul for more than 370 years. There was not even a single road, no electricity, no water, no schools, no health, no infrastructure at 1943. What we ask ourselves is, was in Gambia or Batos at the time entitled to human rights? Was it not a human right for the citizens of Banjul, under whose charge the British government looted those resources, were then compelled to come and develop and give back what they looted from Banjul? Up to 1965, when we get independent, up to 1994, we look at 1994 to date, Banjul at 1943 and Banjul at 2014, under the leadership of His Excellency the President of the Republic. 24 hours uninterrupted power supply to every corner of Banjul. Modern road infrastructure, modern and potable drinking water available at free cost almost. One of the best health facilities, we have the hospitals modernized and transformed into a teaching hospital to teach our own sons and daughters in this country and in this capital. That's what President Jammeh has seen. Primary schools, upper basic schools, high schools at every corner in Banjul. We shall look at that. Electricity, street lights, even at night. 1943, there was no water. 1943, no electricity. 1943, no schools. 1943, no health center. 2014, all is available, coupled with the University of the Gambia to train Gambian. That's what President Jammeh have done for the Banjulians. I'll go straight now to the book. This is His Excellency statement. His Excellency said, Professor Alaji Dr. Yahya E.J.J. Jammeh, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, at the 68th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Friday, 27 September 2013, at the United Nations, New York. Our global body, the United Nations, has indeed adopted countless resolutions, which, if implemented to the latter, would have made the world a much better place for the whole of mankind and indeed for all the creatures of our planet. Unfortunately, as some member states continue to disregard resolutions necessary for the maintenance of world peace and even question or disregard resolutions passed by this august body with impunity, the United Nations continue to be incapacitated. This certainly calls for an assessment of its strengths and weaknesses with a view to rendering it more effective. Civil strife and terrorism caused by the negative behavior of some world powers are undermining human security and even the viability of states. Poverty, hunger, and disease will decimate countless communities, while our capacity to respond to this humanitarian crisis remains discriminatory and inadequate. At the United Nations, they are responsible for ensuring that there is peace and order in the world. But we look at the war in Iraq, we look at Afghanistan, we look at Syria, the list goes on, and even in Africa. The so-called world powers are undoubtedly responsible for their hypocrisy that they place, and they block any resolution that brings in peace in those countries. This is demonstrated yet again in the case of Syria. We believe the creation of this organization in the first place is to find those lasting solutions for peace and the protection of human life. Informed and honest decisions should be made instead to those driven by the interests of a few self-appointed gods, thereby causing irreparable damage to the social fabric and economies of these countries in conflict. My government supports the view that the regional organizations in the Middle East should take the lead in such negotiations for a resolution of the crisis in Syria. Africa's legitimate quest for full representation on the Security Council continues to be a strong warning that needs to be urgently heeded. International peace and security are the business of all, and Africa, a continent whose resources, ranging from material to human, helped to bail the West out of poverty to affluence from the 13th century up till today, cannot be expected to continue to play a second fiddle at the United Nations Security Council or in any international organization as from today. The Gambia remains resolute in her stance that the permanent and non-permanent membership categories of the United Nations Security Council should be equitably distributed regionally and expanded to conform to current geopolitical realities. The Gambia stands by Africa's demand for 2 permanent seats as well as 2 non-permanent seats as clearly articulated in the Ezulwini Consensus and Sir Declaration. His Excellency told them, if Africa is not given permanent seat of the United Nations, the African continent, the rest of the world will see a dignified response from Africa. And his withdrawal from the Commonwealth is one of the dignified reasons that His Excellency told them during the General Assembly. Now, I continue the comment made by President Roosevelt when he visited Banjul by Donald Wright. He started saying that hell hole of yours in 1943 by Franklin D. Roosevelt visited British poorest, most dismal African colony. And what he saw there fired him with a favor that hell found the United Nations by Donald Wright. He said President Franklin D. Roosevelt did not look favorably on European colonialism. Like most Americans, he believed that the self-determination clause of the 1941 Atlantic Charter should apply to all peoples, not just European. In the war's early years, he so disagreed with Britain's Prime Minister Winston Churchill on the future of the British Empire that the 2 heads of state tacitly agreed to avoid discussing the topic. But Roosevelt ceased skirting the issue and became colonialism's outspoken foe after he stopped over the British smallest African colony, Gambia, near the continent's western tip on his way to meet Churchill in Casablanca in January 1943. This brief visit put a human face on misery for the president. It was a first strong whiff of the stench of empire that helped crystallize Roosevelt's thinking about the role of the organization he was envisioning to help guide the post-empire world, the United Nations. Roosevelt's son Elliot, a lieutenant colonel in the Army Air Corps, met his father